Hello, I'm Sasha of Sasha Makes Cards, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be sharing a bookmark I created for this month's Scrappy Challenge over at Kraftin Kimmie Stamps. Today I'm going to be using the new I Believe in You stamp set and the Bumblebee layering stencil. This is a part of the June-July release and they are adorable and I could not resist using them to make a bookmark. Now I've actually already stamped, cut out, and colored my image using Ohuhu alcohol markers. Today I'm going to be using the little honeybee that is flying around with his pot of honey. I already have a video up on my channel sharing some coloring footage of me coloring another one of the bees in the stamp set using the exact same color combination. So feel free to check out that video on my channel. I will also leave a link for that video in the description. Now let's move on to creating the bookmark. As you already saw, I used my guillotine cutter to trim 2 pieces of cardstock, 1 piece of black cardstock and 1 piece of white cardstock, to measure 2 inches by 6 inches. The white piece of cardstock is what is going to have our design on it, and then the black piece of cardstock is going to be the back side of the bookmark. Now if you want, you can create the design on the back so it's a fully double-sided bookmark. However, I just wanted to have the black cardstock on the back as I think it finishes it really nicely. As for the size of the bookmark, you can cut it to whatever size you want. I really liked the 2 by 6 size. I will say I was actually going to cut it down to 2 by 7 inches. However, I realized my guillotine cutter doesn't go to 7, so I did 6. And I think it worked out really well because I quite like the size it is. Once I was ready, I placed the white strip of cardstock onto a sticky mat and placed the first layer of the layering stencil on top to hold it in place and started ink blending. I started with the yellow body of the bumblebees before taking off the stencil, wiping it off, and then placing the exact same stencil back on so that I can then do the blue of the wings. For this part of the layering stencil, because it involves the little details of the blue wings and the yellow bumblebee body, I used these mini ink blending brushes that I had to make sure I get the color exactly where I wanted it. Once I'm done with the wings, I will then peel this stencil off, place down the second layer of the layering stencil, and ink blend the eyes, the stripe on the bumblebee, and the little heart pattern using black soot distress oxide. As for the other colors I used Salty Ocean distress oxide for the wings and Mustard Seed distress oxide for the body. Now something I will say is because this is a bookmark that is going to be going into a book, make sure you're careful on what type of ink you're using or how you finish the bookmark. It's definitely best to ink blend using some kind of permanent or archival ink, or to properly finish the bookmark using some kind of a varnish layer. However, I didn't have any kind of permanent archival ink, and I also didn't have a proper varnish. The only varnish I had isn't compatible with the ink I used and actually smeared it. So if you are going to do a project like this, just make sure that you're using either the right kind of ink or that you have something like a varnish that you can properly finish your bookmark off with, as to avoid any kind of ink smearing in your book. Once the ink blending is done, I can then start gluing all of my pieces together. For this, I'm using Barely Art liquid adhesive glue. I first glue the black strip of cardstock to the back of the white strip that we just ink blended, and then once I glue that on, I decided I wanted to glue some black strips of cardstock on the top and the bottom of the bookmark to help finish it off a little bit. For this, I use a pencil to measure the width I want to cut these at, cut them using my guillotine cutter, and then glue them on. I also then glued on the little honeybee image that I colored earlier and rounded the corners of the bookmark using a round corner punch that I have. Punch the hole for the tassel, I take a measuring tape and mark it at the halfway point on the bookmark, for this at 1 inch, and then take a 1-hole punch and punch the hole right at that mark. Now comes the fun part of making the tassel for the bookmark. For this, you can use whatever kind of material you want. You can use yarn, string. For this, I'm using a black and white baker's twine to match the color scheme of the bookmark. I start by wrapping the baker's twine around this piece of cardboard that I have. You can use a piece of sturdy cardstock, cardboard. Here I'm just using a recycled piece of cardboard from an old pop box or soda box, depending on where you're from. And then I trimmed it once I was happy with how much I had wrapped around. Next, we need to add a piece of baker's twine at the top to keep the tassel together and secure. To do this, I unraveled some of the twine, trimmed it, and slid it under the twine wrapped around the box, bringing it to what will become the top of the tassel and tying it a few times to make sure that the tassel is nice and secure. Since this piece will be what is tied to the bookmark itself, you have to make sure you have cut enough twine so that there will be plenty of room left to create the length of the tassel that you want. Once you've knotted the twine a few times, I knotted it 3 times to make sure it was all nice and secure. You can then cut the bottom of the tassel. To do this, all you have to do is slide your scissors underneath the twine and cut the twine at the bottom of the tassel. To finish off the tassel, we just need to cut one more piece of twine, string, whatever you're using, to tie it around the top of the tassel to create the little decorative piece. I did this by first knotting it once and then wrapping the twine around a few times to make this piece a little thicker. Once I was happy with how it looked, I knotted the twine 2 more times to make sure it would stay in place. You have to make sure that this piece is long enough so that once you are done tying it and wrapping it around, it can then be cut to the same length as the rest of the tassel. After this, I think comes my favorite part of creating a tassel, is cutting off the excess at the ends, as it kind of feels like you're giving it a little haircut. Lastly, all you have to do to finish the bookmark now is knot the twine at the top, making sure you leave a loop, then attaching it to your bookmark by stringing the twine through and looping the tassel through the loop, trimming off the excess twine to finish off the bookmark. And there you have it, that is the completed bookmark. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to the Kraftin Kimmie Stamps Crafty Friends Facebook group so that you can participate in the Scrappy Challenge for this month, which is, as always, the theme is anything but a card, and to also participate in some of the other challenges that will be happening this month. Also be sure to leave the link to the Kraftin Kimmie Stamps website if you want to shop the new June-July release, as well as links to my social media accounts if you want to follow me there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.